What's happening, friends? Welcome back to the Macro Hippo YouTube channel. You're watching another episode of Women's Soccer World, where we talk all about the world of women's soccer and all the glorious things that go on within it. We got another great episode for you today, albeit a shorter one. For today's episode, we're going to talk about one topic and one topic only. It's a bit more of an exploratory topic, just kind of meandering and perusing through some thoughts that I have about the U.S. Women's National Team and its future going forward, because I think a lot of players are in what I'd call a transition phase, meaning that some of them are going to be transitioning into the prime of their careers. Some of them are going to be transitioning out of the prime of their careers. Some players are going to be transitioning into retirement, or at least I think some young players are going to be transitioning into being stars and stardom in the middle of their careers. And I just kind of want to break that down and maybe put some players on your radar to keep watching for as the future of the team kind of unfolds. So that's what we're going to talk about for today's episode. I only have that segment for you today because of the fact that I didn't finish the second segment, which is going to be a preview of the next FAWSL season, which is going to be starting up here in the next 3 weeks. So I'm super pumped for that. But enough about all that. Let's get into our segment for this episode. And of course, as always, I encourage you guys to chime in down in the comments section below to share your perspective. I always appreciate it. So with the conclusion of the Olympics come and gone, I kind of want to take this moment to sort of reflect on the team as a whole and kind of talk about their future a little bit, because a lot of the squad is starting to, I think, get into a transition phase where some players are transitioning from out of their prime into the twilight of their careers. Other players are transitioning from the earlier parts of their careers to their prime. Some are in the middle of their prime, and others are going to be really, really exciting young players to watch that I think are going to grow and be superstars. So we'll start off with the players who I think are starting to kind of enter the twilight of their careers. Let me just kind of go down this list of players and just kind of reveal what age we're talking about here. So Carly Lloyd being at the age of 39, Megan Rapinoe being at the age of 36, Becky Sauerbrunn being at the age of 36. These three players, I think, are still some of the world's best in my mind. However, with the next major tournament not being for another 2 years, that being the 2023 FIFA World Cup, you have to wonder if these players are, one, going to want to be around and play and start within the 2 years, but I wonder if younger players are going to start to enter the fold and start to overtake them a little bit. The one troubled thing I think with sports is the fact that athletes can't play forever, right? Like at some point your body doesn't quite work the same as it used to. You might be a little bit slower, you might not be as strong, it might be harder to stay fit. And I'm just really curious to see how these players are going to feel after the result of the Olympics and if they're going to want to hang it up anytime soon or not. As it stands right now, like I said, they're still some of the best players in the world. However, will that stand in the next 2 years? Who knows? We've seen players do it before in other sports. We've seen players do it before in this sport. I mean, heck, Farrah Williams just retired at the age of 37, and she played pretty well for Reading up until the day she retired. So it's possible for sure. However, I'm really curious to see if these three players who are in the twilight of their careers are going to retire and move on. If any of them are going to want to keep that desire and that heart, I think it's going to be Carly Lloyd. If I was a betting man, I'd say she'd probably be the one most likely to play in the next World Cup, but who knows? That time will tell in that respect. And having said that, kind of going away from the players who are in the twilight of their career, now there are some other players who are kind of starting to get to that point. I mean, at the end of the day, one disclaimer I want to throw out is age is really only a number at the end of the day. However, my point remains still on the body's ability to function and play at a high level the older you get. But some other players I want to keep in mind that are starting to get a little, or might start entering the twilight of their careers, include Kelly O'Hara, she's 33, Alyssa Nair is 33, Kristen Press is 32, Tobin Heath is 33, Alex Morgan is 32. A lot of these players, by the time the World Cup comes around, I think are going to be entering sort of the remaining years of the career, because by and large, a lot of them are going to be 35 going on 36. And I still think these players are going to be around for the World Cup, and some of them will probably have the potential to be starting as long as the younger players don't come into the fold and start dominating. But I'm curious to see if these players will still be in their starting roles or not. If I'm a betting man, I'm guessing they all will be. There, of course, will probably be one or two exceptions. Like if I was betting, I would imagine that Alex Morgan, Kristen Press, and Tobin Heath will all probably be starting in their current roles. The reason being is because there's no one coming up through the ranks that's younger that I see overtaking them within the next 2 years. And if there are players that have potential, I don't think that it's going to be so crazy good potential that it's going to overtake their world-class talent in 2 years' time. Do I have a crystal ball? Am I going to be exactly right on this? Obviously not, because 2 years is a long time away and a lot can change in that time. So I'm curious to see where these players are going to be at by the time that's all said and done. I think Alyssa Nair has a pretty good shot of still being the starting keeper for the US, especially since when you look at the goalkeeping position, players can typically play at that position for the longest time for many reasons. I mean, I look at a lot of Premier League goalkeepers and legendary ones who played well into their early 40s and still had pretty decent careers by the time it was all said and done. So I wouldn't be surprised for Alyssa Nair to stay in that role overall for sure. Now, kind of transitioning from players who are either in their twilight phase or starting to transition out of their prime phase, I want to talk about players who are going to be entering their prime or who are currently in the prime and who are going to be the leaders of this team kind of going forward in 2 years' time. And for me, those players are Crystal Dunn, Julie Ertz, Sam Mewis, Rose Lavelle, and you could make a case for Lindsay Horan. All these players are 29 and younger, and all of them are playing at a very high-level world-class talent. In fact, I would argue that a lot of them are in the top 20 to top 50 players in the world. Some of them are even in the top 10. And according to ESPN FC's most recent rankings, 3 of them are actually in the top 10, if you can believe that. So, or I'm sorry, 2 of them are in the top 10, that being Sam Mewis and Crystal Dunn. Of course, that was done months ago, but I can really see these players right now. They're in their prime, and the good thing about them is within 2 years when the World Cup comes around, they're still going to be in their prime. They're still going to be at that prime age to where their talent, their physical ability is still at its peak. They can still perform at a really high level, and they will have had so much experience within the US Women's national team, provided they continue to play at a world-class level, that they're going to emerge as natural leaders. They're going to be the natural go-to players to really help carry and support the team, like with the likes of Megan Rapinoe and all the others who have come before them. So I think those are the players that are going to really be leading the team in 2 years' time. And I still think that they're going to be performing at a world-class level because of the fact that they'll be in their prime. Rose Lavelle, if there's one thing I learned about Rose Lavelle in the Olympic tournament, is that I can never count her out. And I say that because with her season at Manchester City, she didn't really play in her natural position. She kind of had a rough go of it this year. She got injured a lot. But when it comes to these big tournaments, she plays well no matter what. I would say that she was my player of the tournament for the Olympics. And exiting the 2019 World Cup, she was one of the best players in the U.S. squad. So I can really see her emerging as one of the world's best by the time the next 2 years comes around. I would find it very hard to argue against that. But then again, if she continues to get injured as often as she does, that might hamper some of that, which I don't wish that on any player. In fact, I'm going to knock on wood because obviously you never want that to happen. But those are just my thoughts on that group. And like I said, in 2 years' time, they're all going to be between the ages of 28 and 31. So those are the players I think I'm going to count on, or who I envision leading the squad going forward. Now, I want to kind of transition to the last phase, which is going to be players to sort of watch and observe and players to look out for, because these are the players I think that are the future of the team and are going to be the future world-class players that we see, that are the likes of Crystal Dunn, Julie Ertz, and the like. Some of these players include Caterina Macario, Sophia Smith, Mallory Pugh, Tyranna Davidson, Midge Purse, and Trinity Rodman. So all of these players are between the ages of 19 and 23, Midge Purse and Mallory Pugh being on the higher end of that range. But the one really exciting thing about a lot of these players is the fact that they all either at least have some U.S. Women's national team experience, or they're in the top 10 in a couple of different categories within the NWSL today. Midge Purse, Trinity Rodman, who am I missing? Mallory Pugh, Sophia Smith, they're all in the top 10 in some sort of major category in the NWSL as of the time of this recording, whether it be in scoring, whether it be in assists, shots on goal, even leading their respective team in minutes or being the top 5. That shows that they are valuable to their club and that they need to be on the field in order for the club to be successful. And when you can lead a club like that, it can translate very well over to national play for many, many reasons, because it shows that you can not only help carry your team, but you can also play in a role that makes your team better. And with a mind like Vlatko Andonovski, you can sort of take those players and put them into the proper places to accentuate their strengths and minimize their weaknesses. So I'm really excited to see for these players to come up as they start to get a little bit more experience. I think that they all have the potential to be world class, and I think they are the future of the U.S. Women's National Team. Will it be a little while yet before we start to see them emerge and be leaders in the team? But I think the growth potential is there for all of them, and I'm excited to see what they do. One thing I want to note I know one player didn't really talk about too much, or two I should say, Tyranna Davidson at the young age of 22, she's already had quite a bit of major tournament experience, which is really, really nice. Of course, experience can only really get you so far. You have to have the talent in order to carry yourself through your career, but at the end of the day, it seems like the commonality between Jill Ellis, who is the previous U.S. Women's National Team coach, and Vlatko Andonovski is that they believe in Tyranna Davidson to some extent. Jill Ellis brought Tyranna Davidson to the 2019 World Cup, and I believe Tyranna Davidson played in a couple of matches. And then obviously Vlatko Andonovski played Tyranna Davidson quite a bit in this Olympic tournament. And when you've got two excellent coaches who are coaching arguably one of the best women's soccer teams in the world, both playing the player, it shows that there's something there. Either that or I'm just totally off in my assessment, but I think that there's truly something in Tyranna Davidson's defensive capabilities that all signs point to she's going to be a world-class defender one day, is going to be the future of this team. And what's good about her is she's got a head start with all this experience with the World Cup and with the Olympic appearances that she's been making. Like I said, experience isn't everything, but it certainly doesn't hurt either. The other player I want to mention too is Caterina Macario. Just came off her first professional season with Olympique Lyonnais. She made 7 appearances and scored 5 goals in that time, so not a bad game to goal ratio. That's provided that the stats I collected are correct. So if I am incorrect for whatever reason, feel free to jump down in the comments and let me know. But that's not bad for playing for arguably the best club team in the entire world. So I'm excited to see what Caterina Macario does with the rest of her career as well, and I'm hoping that she'll continue to have success at Olympique Lyonnais. Now, before I wrap up this segment, there's a few other players that I kind of checked up on, and I want to mention that are in my honorable mentions for players to watch for the future of the U.S. Women's National Team. Those names include Bethany Balcer, who's 24, Ashley Hatch, who's 24, and Ashley Sanchez, who's 22. Ashley Hatch and Ashley Sanchez both play for the Washington Spirit of the NWSL. Bethany Balcer plays for OL Reign. And all of these players are in the top 5 in the NWSL currently in some sort of category. Mainly it's scoring or assists. And these players, I think are flying under a lot of people's radars, and they were, to myself included. Of course, they could just be performing well this season. I don't know if their pattern of play has been consistent enough, but they're playing well enough to the point where myself as a fan, I've taken notice, and I think that the U.S. could eventually benefit from their talents. Time will tell. It'll really all depend on how the current U.S. Women's National Team squad sort of progresses, what players decide to hang up the boots, if any of them do at all. And I think it's encouraging to have this much of a young talent pool to sort of choose from, because of the fact that you're constantly challenging those who are in the squad. And the only way you really improve the squad is by always being uncomfortable, right? And Tobin Heath has actually talked about this a lot, and even a couple interviews she had while she was at Man United, she pointed out, like, I don't want to go to somewhere where there is an expectation. You know, if you are comfortable, you're doing something wrong. You always want to be uncomfortable, because that's how you grow and evolve as a player. And with all these young players coming through the ranks, I think it pushes the current squad members to do just that. So those are just my thoughts on the future of the U.S. Women's National Team as the way I see it. Of course, this is just one fan's opinion. If you guys have any thoughts on that, feel free to jump down in the comments below and let me know whatever your thoughts are. All right, my friends, so that is going to do it for this episode of Women's Soccer World. Once again, thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe if you like videos like these, and hit the notification bell if you don't want to miss an episode. Once again, this has been the Bankrupt Hippo YouTube channel. I've been Bryce, and until next time, have a great day.